participants are still joining, I request you to please start the session and maybe you can have a brief recap of yesterday's session.
Okay.
Okay, sir. So over to you.
So yesterday we have learned a few data structures like what are those? String, list, and tuple and dictionary. Okay. I think I think you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay. So today we are doing uh, conditional statements. So basically, conditional statements are those statements where we get a output like true or false kind of thing. Okay, generally when you say like in C programming language, when you use if statement, that is nothing but your conditional statement. We say, and based on the output that we get on the condition, whether it is true or whether it is false, based on that we'll be what deciding what to do. Okay, that is the basic concept that we are having. Fine. Now basically we write it like this: if condition, then there is some statement, else, then colon, we are having some more statement. We write it in this way. Basically what we generally have: a statement, then we go to a if condition. If the condition is true, then do some other kind of work and come out, or if it is no, then do some other kind of work and come out. This is the basic flow that we have. But under this if else condition, one important thing is indentation and another important thing is colon here. So unless and until your program is properly indented, it will not take it. It will give you an error. Like in C program, to identify a block of statement, you say like you write curly braces. But here, in order to identify a block, you need to have the proper indentation. I'll show you how. Like if I'm having writing f, if x 8 is greater than 5, then I'll write this colon, and I'll give a tab over here. Some space. Okay. And if I'll put enter also, automatically sometime it takes the tab. Okay. Then I'll print 8 is greater than 5 is true. Otherwise I'll write else again. What? A colon will be there, and I'll write 8 greater than 5 is false. Okay, this is how I am going to write it out. Okay. Now the output of this statement is obviously 8 greater than 5 is true. It means when this particular condition, when this condition is true, it will execute the first block, and when this condition is false, the second else part will be getting executed. Okay. If look here, if I am saying that the it is not properly indented, properly space is not given, if I am directly starting from here, it will raise an exception or error, expected an indented block. Because after this colon, you the interpreter is expecting a block of statement, at least one statement, and that statement supposed to be having properly indented. Some space, whatever space you have given here, the same space supposed to be you need to give here. Okay, let us do a execution, a program, so that you will be able to understand it. Okay. Now let us say I am writing here if what x, let us say 4 is greater than 6, bracket, you if you want to give, you give, otherwise no need of a bracket for this. You see, when I press enter, automatically the cursor start blinking here, not at the beginning, not at the beginning, but somewhere after giving some kind of space. Okay, so after this I came here, I am writing here print some statement I'll write here. Okay, some statement I'll write here, like 4 greater than 6 is true. Okay, and again you see, when I press enter, the interpreter never knows that whether you are starting, whether the next statement you are writing is a part of the block or not a part of the block. So always it will be giving you the cursor blinking here. So if this is the only one statement you want to write, then you can press backspace and go to the start, and you can write else, and you can write print what, 4 greater than 6 is false. Okay, now execute it. It is showing me 4 greater than 6 is false. 4 greater than 6 is false. Now instead of this, I can write something like a equal to 33 and b equal to 56, and I am comparing a and b. I am writing here greater than equal to, also I can write here, and I am not writing this too. Okay, so that I'll be able to, a is greater than b or not, which statement it will be what, printing. You see, it is printing false. It means a is not greater than or equal to b, that is a value is 33, b value is 53. So so you understood what is the meaning of indentation here. You see, whenever you after the colon, after this colon, when you press enter, a specific amount of space is left out by the compiler itself. Okay, here also after this colon a specific number of space are left by the compiler itself, so that the compiler will be knowing, what are the, I mean, within the block what are there. So if I want to write something, as many thing I am writing here, you see, everything is written after the same amount of space, it means within this, so it means all these statements belongs to the if condition. Okay, and if I want to write it like this, so if I, for else case also it is the same. After the colon, whatever I will be typing, it will be giving me a specific amount of space, so that my interpreter will be identifying these sets of blocks will be under the else statement. These set of statements belongs to the else statement. Okay, I hope you got it now. Now look at this particular program. What it is saying, that I am having a list. Hi, how are you? Okay, these are my 4 strings inside a list. Okay, now what I am doing, I am taking a input. Okay, when I'm saying whether my input in is a keyword, it will be checking whether in this list this value is existing or not. Okay, in my list, it means whether my input is a element belongs to this list or not. Okay, if my list is in this, I'll write yes, otherwise I'll write no, and I can write one more statement better lock. Okay, so the output will be something like this. So if I am pressing high, capital H and small I is a part of this particular list, so that's why it is printing me yes. And if I am writing high, small h and I, and small h and I, high is not a part of this particular string, this particular list rather, it will be printing me, no. Better luck next time. Okay. Now when we have multiple condition, then we will be having if else, if else kind of thing. Okay, then how can we write it? It is something like this. So we'll write L if, not else if. In case of C we write else if, but in case of Python we will write ELIF, L if. Okay, the thing is ELIF. Okay, so the statement flow will be like this, and after some statement we will be getting a conditional statement. If the condition is true, we are going to perform something. If it is no, again we are going to test one more condition. So this condition is elif. This condition is elif. Again, if it is yes, it is executing some set of statement. If it is no, it is executing some other set of statements. Okay. Now let us take an example on this. If let us say my list is hi, how are you, and my list 2 is I am fine. Okay. Now I am taking a input, a string that I am taking, and if I am writing, if my input in my list, look here I have given bracket. This condition statement I am writing a bracket. Okay. So if you are writing bracket also no problem, if you are not writing a bracket also no problem. So if my input in my list colon, I'll be writing print my input is in list 1. If it is not there, then it will be coming to the else statement. Again I am checking if my input is in my list 2, then I'll say the my input is in list 2. Otherwise, if neither of these conditions satisfies, then I'll come to the else statement, where is not available in the list it will be writing. Let us say here I am writing capital H and I. So it will be saying hi is in the list 1. If I am writing M is the word, it is in list 2. And if I am writing 3 is neither available in list 1 nor available in list 2. Now I want you to write a small if else statement in which I'll be saying, let us say mark, if mark is equal to, let us say is less than equal to let us say 60%, then it will print me second division, or rather less than 6 means it will be fail, it will be like fail. Okay. And if mark is less than equal to 70% mark, and it is greater than equal to greater than strictly greater than 60%, then it will be write pass. Okay. Or rather I'll write it something like this: if mark is less than 60 fail, and if mark is greater than equal to 60 then pass. Try to write this program, sir, a small program. Are you writing, sirs? The screen I am sharing once more so that you will not be having any problem with the syntax. Whether you have written like this, let us try to execute. It is asking me to enter mark. Let us say I am writing 45. So it is saying 45 is failed because it is less than 60 marks. Okay. Now if I am writing is 74, then 74 it is saying me pass. And if I am asking it to print, let us say exactly 60, exactly 60 also pass. So strictly less than, strictly less than will be getting me fail, and anything other than that, anything other than that will be passing. Have you written it, sir? Whether I will be showing the code once more? Okay. Now let us start one more program. Now the same problem I have given with little bit more condition into it. What I am writing? I have written a statement. I have written a statement. I am taking a input. Okay, input percentage I have taken, and it's supposed to be a integer value. Okay. Next, I am taking if my input is less than 50. If my input is less than 50, I am saying it is third division. Even 0% also third division. I have not made anything else of it. Okay. Else if I am writing if my input is greater than 50 and my input is less than 60. Okay, both the condition need to be satisfied. It's supposed to be within this as well as within this. If both conditions are satisfied, I'll be writing second division, and otherwise I am writing first division. Okay, so here the program I have not written for failed. I have not written for fail. Okay, I have written anything less than 50. means 0 to 49, 0 to 49. I have not mentioned again here, I have not mentioned again here negative value. Let us say negative value also you give. Okay, that also it will take it as third division. Between 50 to 60 it will print second division, and between and apart from that whatever is there will be printing my first division. Okay, the program is written in that way. If you want to write something, some code for fail also, you can put such kind of a condition, like for 45, if the percentage is 45, then it is third division. If the percentage is 55, it is second division. And if the percentage is 65, it is first division. Like that we can print. Okay, so now now you can write this program. What is that program? You are taking side of a triangle, and the print statement will say whether the whether it is a right angle triangle or not, whether this is a right angle triangle or not. Can you try it? Can you try it? What is the program? You are giving length of three sides length you are giving, and what it is required, it is saying the output should indicate whether it is a triangle, whether the triangle is right angle triangle or not. What is the condition for right angle triangle? What is the condition for right angle triangle? The condition for right angle triangle is either a square equal to a square is sorry, if I am having a b c as three sides, if I am taking a b c,
Hypotenuse is equal to sum of other two sides. Square of hypotenuse is equal to square of other two sides.
yeah.
Sum of squares and sum, sir.
No, here the yes,
For
I am talking about the triangle is right angle or not. Triangle is right angle or not. For right angle triangle, what you need to do? You need to do two sum of two side. What is the condition of a right angle triangle? General
For
triangle.
example,
Tell me.
a square equals to b square plus c square, sir.
Yeah, either you will be having a square equal to b square plus c square, or you will be having b square equal to a square plus c square. Okay, or you will be having c square equal to a square plus b square. Okay, out of these three conditions anything may satisfy. So you will write if this condition or this condition or this condition, then it's supposed to print that this is a right angle triangle. Otherwise it will print it is not a right angle triangle. How you are going to write it? You can take it like, whether you are trying it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, try. So what you are going to write here is, let me write it like this. A equal to enter side 1, then this is side 2, this is side 2. I am writing it for B, and next for C I'll be writing here like this. So I'm going to write it. What I'm going to write? I'm going to write a square. A square I'll write how write? I can write AA or I can write A double star 2. I'll write A double star 2. I can A square can be written in this way. Okay. So I can write better. I'll write A star A. A star A. Okay. A star A square is equal to A square equal to B star B plus C star C, or B star B is equal to A star A plus C star C, or C star C equal to A star A plus B star B. If this is the condition, if this condition satisfies, then I have to say the triangle is right angle okay. Otherwise I'll write what it is, not a right angle triangle. Let us see whether you have also written in this way or not. Let us execute it. So side 1 is let us say what 4, 5 and 6. It is saying it is not a right angle triangle. Okay. So what I can take, so give me an example of a right angle triangle. So I am taking 3, 4 and 5. So this is saying me it is a right angle triangle. It is a right angle triangle. Okay. Whether this program is okay, whether you have done it. Whether you have done this program. Okay. So with this the conditional statements are over. We are going to deal now with looping structures. We are going to deal with looping structures.
Sir, 1 minute, please turn to the program code, sir.
Okay. Okay. Code is anyhow is there.
Actually, they are trying right now.
Okay.
Just a moment.
Okay. So you can, for better readability, you can give the brackets here. This is the first statement, this is the second statement, and this is the third statement, and ultimately the whole bracket. For readability, you can give the first brackets, but even though if you don't give, it's not a very big problem. Is it done? Okay. Done, sir. Okay. So now we are going for repeated statement or looping. Okay, so when we refers to iteration, repeatedly working some work, then we will be using a loop. There are two type of loop we are having. One is a while loop and another is a for loop. And the syntax for while loop is something like this. While a condition or a expression, conditional expression will be there. If this condition is true, we'll be doing some set of instructions. So here also the colon and the indentation is very important. Okay, now how it will work? We are having, let us say, statement, and we are taking a while condition. While the condition is true, as long as the condition is true, it will be executing the statement. Again it will go back, again it will check the condition, again it will come to the statement, and this looping will be continuing as long as the condition is true. Once the condition is false, it will come out of the looping and it will go to other statement and other works to do. Now look at the simple program. Okay, what we are doing, we are writing a program for factorial here. Now we are trying to find the factorial of a number. So obviously I need a integer to be read. So that's why I am doing a integer kind of thing. I am taking whatever input I have taken, I have converted to a integer. Fine. Now I have taken, always I know that factorial of a particular number, the least number possible is 1. So I have taken fact equal to 1, because for factorial I am going to multiply. So multiplication can be done with 1. Okay, and I am taking a variable I assigned to 1. I have taken the while structure. Here also this bracket that I kept, it is not mandatory. It is not mandatory. So you can write for better readability, otherwise you can omit the bracket also. But the condition must be there. What is the condition? I is less than equal to my num. And after that we are getting a colon. When what I am doing? I am multiplying the current fact with the current fact is multiplied with the I, and it is saved in again the variable fact, and I is incremented by 1 in the next statement. So within this while loop, these two statements are getting executed. How long this will be getting executed? Every time I is getting incremented. So when I value will be, as long as I value is less than or equal to my num, till then these two statements will be executing. Once it is becomes greater than, then it will come out of the loop and the value will be printing here. Okay, so the output, you can see the output will be like this. I have not seen any programming language in C or C++ or Java that I can get the factorial of 30.
Hello.
Yes,
Sir.
yes. Yes, ma.
Sir, once again, please.
I'll say it once more. Okay. Okay. I am saying it once. So I am erasing everything and I am saying this program once more. Very good. You are keep on asking. So let us say I am trying to do a dry run and then I'll show you. Okay. Now I want to find the factorial of 4. I am trying to find the factorial of 4. So what I have taken? I have taken the variable fact to be 1, and one more variable I have taken I equal to 1. Okay. Now as long as I value is less than or equal to my num, what I want this to be 4. Okay. So this condition, when I is equal to 1, I value is 1 and my num value is 4. So this condition satisfies, this condition give me true. So what I'll do fact equal to fact into 1. What is the value of fact? Fact is 1 and I value is I value is 1. Initially I value is 1. Fact initially is defined 1. I value is 1. So in the first go I am getting the value of fact to be 1. And now I value is increased by 1. Okay. So next time when I'll come here, the fact will be giving me 1 and I value is 2. I value is 2. So 1 into 2, it will give me 2. Okay. And next I value got incremented. Next value of I becomes 3. Next value of I becomes 3. So this value of 2 is saved here. This value of 2 is saved here for the second time, and the value of I becomes 3. So 2 into 3 I'll get here 6. Okay. Next value of I is 4. Next value of I is 4. So the I value is 4 and the fact value is 6. Okay. 6 into 4 I got 24. I got 24. Again I'll come here and the next I value will be incremented by 1, that is 5. But now at this condition, at the condition I value is 5 and this my number is 4. Now this condition becomes false. So I'll no more execute this set of statements whatever I have written inside the while loop, and I am writing the what output fact. So it is giving me 24 as output. Is it okay, ma?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. So I have not seen any programming language till now. I mean with C, C++ and Java that will give me factorial of 30. In C I have seen that it cannot give me factorial of 9 also. Okay. Factorial of 9 also it cannot give me. It will say me what overflow. But here you can see that factorial 30 also I can get. Are you trying it out? Are you typing it out, Kavya?
No, sir. No, I'm just listening.
Okay, done. Now let us do one more state program. With this small
That's
program,
not there is one query.
yes,
May I ask?
you are saying something, sir?
Yes, sir. One query is there.
Yes.
Which is not clear to me. The last print statement, which is there,
This
last
print-
one.
This
Ah,
one. Huh?
If it is written before the previous statement, then what will be the output?
Okay, let us check it out. That's why I was asking you. You do all these experiments. You can do all these experiments. Okay.
Okay.
Now, as you have asked me, I'll write it down. Nothing is like that. Okay, now I'll do it. What is that? I am writing. Let us say fact equal to integer of input of enter a number. Okay. Now what I am doing, I am taking let us say I'm not let me take, this is not fact, let us say a number. Okay. Now I am taking fact as a variable, and I am taking one more variable I is equal to 1. Okay. And I am writing while I is less than equal to num, what need to be done? Fact equal to fact star I, and I is incremented by 1, and if the condition, as long as this condition is true, it is okay. Otherwise I'll come out and I'll print what? I'll print fact. Right?
Yes.
Let us run this. So it is asking me to this number. I got 24. Okay.
Right.
So what was your query? If I'll be writing it
Is
here,
the print statement?
I mean
No,
it is a part of the while statement now. Now it is a
Okay.
part of while statement. Okay.
Okay.
So I am writing 4. You see, for all the values, it will be printing as it is inside the while loop. as it as the print statement is inside the while loop. Now I have told you regarding indentation kada. So these
Yes.
statements having equal space, so these set of blocks are a part of these while statement. Okay, while loop.
Right.
So for every time this is calculated, it will be getting printed. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So here is one program. Now by reading at the program, can you tell me what will be the, no, you cannot tell because it is I need to read the value. You need to read the value. So what it will do here is, this program what it will do here is, I'll be reading a number. Let us say the red number is 100. Let us say the red number is 100. Okay. Now within 1, the I is starting, the first value is starting with 1. So within 1 to 100, whatever numbers are there, those number which are divisible by 5, I am taking the sum of all those numbers. And printing at last. How it is happening? Let us read the program once more. What is happening here is, you understood this statement. This is I, this is the value, initial value I, initial value is 1, I have taken. Okay, and my num I have taken as 100. So as long as I'll keep on incrementing I value. So first I value is 1, next time I value will be 2, next time I value will be 3. So as long as I value is not 101, it will be continuing. So 1 to 100, this condition will be satisfying, right? Again I kept, this is the indentation that I have given. Okay, this is the indentation that I have given. I have written a if statement inside this, and inside this again I am having a condition. If I value mod 5 equal to 0, it means if I value is divisible by 5, what I am going to do? I am going to write the sum with the previous sum. So again here also this statement is a part of this if statement. So again from here again I am getting a indentation. Okay, so it means this if statement is a part of the if block. Okay, and but this I equal to I plus 1, this statement is not a part of this if block. It is a part of the while block. Okay, and after this I am going to get the print. So if I am writing here 300, so all from 1 to 100, all the numbers which are divisible by 5, 1 to 300, all the numbers which are divisible by 5, the sum of all those numbers are 9150. Okay, I hope it is clear how I am going to, the thing is here, you need to understand how a if block is written, how a while block is written, how a if block is written inside a while block. I am repeatedly telling, sir, indentation is very, very important, and when you are learning for the first time, obviously there is a chance that you will commit mistake in indentation. Okay. Now okay, now you see whether you are going to type it out, whether you are
Yes,
going
sir,
to
we'll
try
try
it out.
once.
Huh?
Yes, sir, we want to try once.
Yeah, you type it out, no issue, I'll be waiting for you.
Sir, I want to ask.
Yeah, ask me.
Hello. Is it necessary to give mark? What is it? A titik comma that column in the end of the increment statement?
You are asking me about this column?
I,
You
no,
are
no, 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 no.
No. You are asking about a semicolon here?
Yes. Yes.
Huh?
Because yes, that's
No
correct.
need, no
Because
need. No need, because here also we have not given, no? Here also we have not given, so this semicolon is not required. It is not a,
but is it
it is not
okay?
a terminator.
Is it okay if we don't?
Uh-huh.
It means is it okay if we didn't write that semicolon?
Huh. Type it out, we'll see it, madam.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
na?
you. Yes.
Excuse me, sir. I have a small announcement to make.
Yeah, yeah.
Nayak, sir.
Yes, yes.
Sir, tomorrow session will be taken by the speaker from Indonesia.
Yeah.
No,
Huh?
Eri, our
Yeah.
colleague Eri will be taking the session,
Right.
and he will be working on Jupyter.
Yeah. I'll
So
give a field today, huh?
today, sir, today he will after your session. I request you to finish your session by 6:10,
Okay.
and then 10-15 minutes he will be helping all the participants in installing Jupyter,
Okay.
and he will be sharing the presentation PPT also
Okay.
of step-wise step installation process.
Very
Right
nice.
now Eri is in the call,
Mm-hmm.
so I already had a discussion with him. So this is for all the participants. Today, as communicated yesterday, the session may last up to 6:30. So Nayak sir shall be completing by 6:10, and then 10 to 15 minutes maybe may take for you all to understand what is Jupyter, and you will be working on the same platform tomorrow. It is nothing new. It is just an enhanced version of this ideal platform right now which you are using. Just some more enrichments are there, enhancements are there. So this was just the announcement, sir. You may please carry on now.
Okay. Now you can, if the program is over, I'll do for one more looping structure, that is for loop. Okay, that is for loop. Now you can see the syntax here. I'll be writing the keyword for. There is a variable name. There is a variable name, and I can have a keyword called in, and there is a range. In this range, I'll be having a starting, I'll be having a ending, and I'll be having increment or decrement. Then I'll be having the colon statement and the colon, and then we are having the set of statement which is properly indented. Okay. Now the looping structure will be something like this. Okay. Now let us directly go and work see the program. And before going for program, we must understand what is a range function. Okay. So the range function is, if I am writing simple range of 10, then it will be taking me data from 0 to 9. Okay. If I am writing a range of 1 comma 10, then here the starting value is 1, ending value is what? I told you yesterday that ending value is not included, it is excluded. So 1 to 9 will be getting printed. If I am writing range of 1 comma 10 comma 2, it means from 1 to 9, not including 10, 1 to 9 at a step of 2. Okay, increment of 2. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 will be getting printed. If I am writing 10 to 0 with increment, with decrement of -1, I will be writing here 0 is not included. Okay, the end value is not included. It means 10 to 1 only it will be printing, not 0. Okay, now here 10 to 0 minus 2, it will be printing me 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Here 1 is not a even number. So basically 10 to 1 but at a decrement of 2. Okay, if I am writing 2 to 11 with increment of 2, it will be like this, 2 to 10 with increment of 2. Okay, so if the increment is missing, it means it will be by default it will be taking increment of 1. You see here -5 to 5. So -5 to 4 only it is getting printed. Okay, if I am writing 1 to 1, then it will be giving me, I mean same number to same number, it will be giving me a empty string. If I am writing something like this, 1, -1 and -1, it means starting with 1, I am going up to 0 with decrement of -1. So 1 and 0 will be getting printed. If I am writing range of 1 to 2, it means only 1 is printed because 2 is not my target. Okay, if I am writing 1 to -1, it will be returning me empty. Now let us, if I am writing range of 0, it will give me empty. Now with this knowledge, let us see a small program. Sum equal to 0 for I in range of 1 to 10, sum plus equal to 1, and print the sum. Now you can see here, I is a variable. I have not, I is a variable, and it will take the data from this range function. Okay, 1 to 10 means what? 1 to 9. 10 is not included. So what I am doing here, I have taken the variable sum. Sum is now added to the I value. So first I value is 1, second I value will be 2, third I value will be 3, fourth I value will be 4, something like that. So it will be taking all the data from 1 to 9 and getting print. And this sum statement right now is a statement within the for statement. Look, the indentation is given, and this print statement is outside the for loop. Okay, so the output will be something like this, 45. I hope you got it. If still you are having problem, you can ask me. If you understood for loop, if you understood while loop, then for loop is also easy. Okay, whether you got it, if at all any doubts are there, you can raise, no issue at all. If you don't have any doubt, we'll go to the next example. This can be understood only with the help of examples. Now you can say me what will be the output of this particular program. I am expecting a output from this particular program. What will be the output of this program? The output is nothing but 20. Why? Because I'm starting with 2 and going up to 9 with an increment of 2. It means 1, I'm going with 2, then 4, then 6, then 8. So these are the data, sum of these data I am going to get. Okay, the sum of these data I am going to get. I think it is clear now. Okay, now what is the output of this particular program? If these few programs you can say no, range function also will be clear, and you are getting, I mean, all your doubts will be getting clear. What will be the output of this particular program? What is the starting value? Starting value is what? 9. What is the ending value? Ending value is 0. It means it will go, and it is a decrement statement. So I'll take decrement of 2, 9, then 7, then 5, then 3, and then 1. 0 is not included. So sum of these numbers I'll be getting here. Okay. So the sum is 25. Okay. Now one more statement is there, that is called continue statement. If I don't want to do something under certain condition, then I'll be using the keyword that is called continue. It will skip. It will skip. It is used for skipping. If you have learned C programming language, there also whatever meaning the continue takes, here also the same meaning I am having. Okay. So let us say I am having in while loop also I can use the continue, in for loop also I can use the continue. So for I is something, if the condition is true, then continue. It means without doing some work, it will again go back and take the next I value. It will take the next I value under these condition without doing certain works. Here also under while condition you will be having, if the condition is true, if I am writing keyword continue, then under such kind of condition it will go and take the next I value. Okay. Now look at this small program. The same programming is written for using for loop and for while loop also. Now the for loop, you see, for I in the range of 5. In the range of 5 means I'll get 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. These are the values I'll be getting. Okay. Now if I value is 3, I am writing continue. Okay. And and after that I am printing it. It means these if statement and the print statement is inside the for loop. The continue statement is inside the if statement. Okay. So if even though this condition is not satisfying, when this condition is not satisfying, it will be printing me the value I. And when the condition is satisfying, without printing this value of I, it will go and take the next value. Here also you see I value is 0, while I is in the range of 10. This I doesn't carry any meaning right now. Okay, because I in the range of 10, no, so 0 to 4 anyhow it will be taking. I is equal to 0 is not required. What I am doing, I am printing it. The value of I, first I value is 0, so 0 is printed. Then I value is incremented by 1, and if the value is equal to 3, then it will continue. It will take the next value here. Okay. So in this way the 3 will never be getting printed. Whenever I is equal to 3, it will not print 3 and continue up to continue the next statement. Now you see the out of the loop statement. This out of the loop statement having same indentation as while. The print statement here having same indentation as for. It means this print statement is not a part of the for loop. So after the execution of the what statement inside the for loop, it is out of the loop. Okay, I am coming out of the loop and I am printing this. Okay, so this is what a continue statement is. Okay. Now again one more program I am taking for continue statement. What is that? Whenever the ith item, whenever the ith item is equal to n, whenever the ith item is equal to n, it will be, I'll be continuing with the next I value, otherwise I'll be printing it. Here also the same thing. It means what it will do, it will print me the data without any n in it, because I'm saying from 0 to till the end, from 0 till the end. So it means whenever I value is equal to n, it will be not printing. So you see, I, M, L, E, A, R, N is missing here. I, N, G, here between I and G there N is missing, Python N is missing. So whenever it will be getting a N, it will be executing the continue statement. It will be executing the continue statement. Okay. So like that I can use the for loop. Similarly, I will having one more statement, that is break. Break is used to come out of the loop in between. Come out of the loop in between. So what I am doing here, you see, the same program, instead of continue I am using here break. The same program I am using here break. Okay. So what is the meaning of this? Whenever we'll execute the statement, whenever this condition is true, I is equal to 3, it will come out of the loop. It will come out of the loop. So I can write, I can get the output 0, 1 and 2. I can get the value 0, 1 and 2, because I equal to 3. When I becomes 3, without printing 3, before printing 3, I am encountering a statement, that is break. So it means come out of the loop. Okay. So that is how I will be using a break statement. Okay. Now here also you see this one, the output will be remaining same for both the statements. So what is that? Whenever I will be encountering a n, which for whichever the first value of n, whenever I will encounter n for the first time in the string, it will come out of the loop. So the output will be, the first n is appearing here. The first n is appearing here. So that's why it will be printing up to this. Okay. So similarly with the so there is a one more statement called pass. Whenever I don't want to do anything, I'll be writing pass. Pass is same as continue, but it is used for function and object oriented programming. It is used more. Okay. But we generally don't use pass under looping structure. Okay. So we are having nested loop also. Loop inside a loop is called nested loop. So within the first for loop, I am having for I, the value in the first loop, the value of I is changing. In the second loop, value of j is changing, and I am writing a table, I cross j equal to I star, the multiplication table. Okay. So you can see here, this print statement is a part of this for loop, and these three statements are a part of this for loop. Okay. So whenever I will be continuing, j value will be incrementing, this statement will be getting printed. So when the next I value will be incrementing, these three statements will be getting printed. So it is something like this. Under while loop also I can write it in the same fashion. Okay. We don't have time right now to try different programs. I have already given you a what I'll be giving you the a study material. From that you can learn and you can have it. One more thing that I need to, very important thing that I need to say is regarding function. Still, if you are having some doubt, on the last day we can have some time to complete it out. Okay. Now the function is like C or C++, we need to define it to a specific set of work. So the keywords start with DEF. the keyword will start with def. Def function name. If at all parameters are required, I'll pass the parameters. Then I'll be having colon, and I'll be having a this parameter list is basically optional. I may or may not have. Then the body of the function I need, and if I'm having a return statement is also optional. If I want to return it, I can return, otherwise not required. Let us see a program here. I am writing here def first function, my first function, and I have written a square bracket. I have written a first bracket here. Then I am having a what? Colon symbol. Okay, a colon symbol I am having here. Okay, now giving a proper indentation here, I have written here my first function, and I'll come out of this, and the same indentation as def, I'll start writing print. I am writing some statement called start. Now I am calling the function. I can call the function by the function name. What is the function name? Function name is my first function. Okay, my first function. So the function name is called, and whatever the function need to do, it will be doing here when the function is called, and at the end I'll be what? Printing end. Okay, now you see what is happening here. When this function is when the function this statement will be executed first. The print will be executed first. The start will be printing. Now when the function name is called, it will be, the control will be going to this particular location, and it will start working from here. And when all the statements got executed, it will come to the immediate next statement and print it and start executing the next statement here. Okay, so the output will be something like this for this particular program. I'll be writing start because it is, the program is starting with a print statement, that is start, and unless and until I call the function, the def function can never be called. Okay, so I need to call the function by giving function name and a bracket. Okay, and after that, and if the function is called, what need to be printed? My first function. So my first function got printed, and at the end I am getting my last statement got printed, that is end. Okay, now if I'll write it like this, I'll write the difference between these two programs is, first I have written that function, and then I have called, and now here what I have done, first I have called, then I have defined. Okay, but this is wrong. It will give me a error. What is that error? The first statement will get printed. Start got printed, because it is a interpreter, line by line it will be executing, so it will not show the error at the beginning. So whenever there is a error, it will stop there. So the first statement, there is no error, so start got printed. When the second statement is executing, the first function need to be called. So but where it is? After this, but it's supposed to be defined before this. So what the error, you say error name error, name first function is not defined. We have defined it, but not before it. So as I told you, interpreter need to start reading from the starting till end. So when it is starting, the first, he has not encountered a function before this, so this kind of error we got. Okay, now you see what will be the output. Can you say me what is the output here? Read the function. I am having a def keyword, and then I have written my function name, first function, square bracket is there, colon is there. Then I am writing my first function in a double quote. I have written print start, then first function equal to 1, and I am printing end. What will be the output? What will be the output? Start and end. Yes, very good. Why? Why? Because I have not called the function. I have not called the function. Every time I will be calling the function, I must give the square bracket. I mean, what I wanted to say is, here with the same name I am having a variable. Now this first is treated as a variable, not as a function. Whenever I will be calling the function, you can see here in the previous example, it is called with this first bracket along with the function name. Okay, without the function name it will become a variable. It will become a variable. So that's why be careful when we are calling the function. Function name supposed to be followed by, when you are calling function, it will be calling you with the bracket in. Okay, now can you tell me what will the output of this function with parameter? I can pass a parameter here. Okay, now what I am having here, I can have a value, that is number equal to 101 I am having. Okay, I am printing the value before passing. I am saying before passing. So this statement will be printing me 101. It will be printing me 101. And now what? The function is called. The function is called with the value passed onto it. The value passed onto it. So when I am passing the value, it will receive the value here, and this value is now incremented by 5. This value is now incremented by 5. So now this value after calculation, it will become 106, and if it will print me 106. It will print me 106. Okay, and when I will come back here, again I am printing NO. So which value it will print? Whether it will print 101 or 106, because the value inside the function got changed. Because the value inside the function changed. What it will print? 101 or 105? 106. No, it will be 101 only. Why 101 only? Let me say you. Because when I am passing the value inside, it becomes a local variable. It becomes a local variable. Whenever I am passing the number as 101 here, it becomes a local variable here. So whatever value I changed it is local to this one. Of course the name is same here. Of course the NO here and NO here are same. The variable names are same, but their scope is different. The variable, this is one more assignment. NO is one more assignment here, and this is only the scope of this particular variable is limited to this particular function only. So the value 106 is affected inside the function, but when it will come out, the scope of this particular value will no more be existing. So 101, whatever earlier I had, the same 101 will be getting printed. Okay, now here one more kind of parameter is there, that is called positional parameter. This is called positional parameter. So based on the position of the value, it will take it. Okay, so here what I am doing here, you see I am having a function, and as the keyword starting with def, it is obviously a function. So function with parameter is the function name. I am passing two variables a and b, and I am summing it up, c equal to a plus b, and I am writing sum of a and sum of b is c. Okay, there is no problem with this. But what is the value here? A and b. When I am calling, first time I am passing 5 and 10, and second time I am passing 21 and 56. Okay, it means what? The value of 5 is taken by a here, and the value of 10 is taken by b here, Similarly, the value of 21 becomes A and the value of 56 is B. So the position in which it is, the order in which it is appearing is important. So that's why the same way A and B is printed, 5 and 10. So the order is important here. So this is how I'll be having some positional parameter. Now one more kind of parameter is there, that is called what? Keyword passing, keyword argument passing. What is that keyword argument passing? You will be able to understand from this. Now in my previous program, I have simply passed the value, but in this program I have written A equal to 5 and B equal to 10. Of course here A and B parameters are there, but the same value I have written A equal to 5 and B equal to 10. I have written it in this manner. So what will happen? And now the same program I have written B equal to 10 and A equal to 5. Okay, two different programs are here. This is the first program, and this is the second program. In the first program I have written A equal to 5, B equal to 10, and here I have written B equal to 10, A equal to 5. Okay, as I have mentioned the value of the parameter that I am passing, okay, by keywords, let's say, so A value, when I am saying A equal to 5, whether it appears first or whether it is appears second, A's value will be assigned 5 only and B value will be assigned 10 only. Here B is assigned 5, but doesn't matter, the value of B is now written over here, so B will be given to the 10 value, 10 will be given to B and A will be given to, so 5 is given to A. Okay, so in this order, so here the ordering is not important. Here the ordering of the variable is not important when you are passing the keyword arguments. The ordering is not important, but under the previous condition we are having the ordering is important. When you are passing the parameter with values like 5 and 10, then the order is important. But in this case, when you are mentioning A equal to some value, B equal to some value, the order is not important. So I hope you got this also. Let me cover to some extent and then I'll give you some kind of a problem so that you will be trying it out. Okay, so I can have a mixed fashion also. What is that mixed fashion? I can have both passing by value and passing by keywords also. Now you can see this value of C I have specifically mentioning to be 30. Okay, it will be going over here. So what will the value of 10? It will go to A and this 20 will go to B. Okay, so it will be giving me. So if I am writing, this is my first program, and in the second program, what I have written here, I am writing in this way. What is that? A equal to 10. So A value, I am not writing any A value here. I have written C equal to 30 and B equal to 20. So obviously, as I have mentioning that C value is 30, this value goes this, and B equal to 20, B value goes to B, and A value supposed to be at the beginning. It means what? Passing by value. Whenever I am doing mixed fashion kind of parameter passing, it means I am using passing by value and passing by keywords. Then I need to use the passing by value first and then I will be writing keywords. If I will write first like function of c equal to 10, and then without writing anything I'll write 20, then it will not take, because this is a keyword, passing by keyword, this is passing by value. Always we need to pass by value first and then the keywords, okay. I hope you understood this. Now you see this particular program. Assigning value to parameters. Now here I am, here in this particular type I am writing a value, b value and c value in the function itself, okay. And here I am not passing any parameter. I am here passing only one parameter. Here I am passing only two parameters. Here I am passing all the three parameters. This is called default values. These are my default values. It means when I am not passing any parameter but parameters are required, at that time a equal to 1, b equal to 2 and c equal to 3 value will be taken, okay. And if only one parameter is there, so obviously it's supposed to go to the first parameter, that is a value. And if first two, so you see here, whenever no parameter is passed, sum of 1, 2, 3 is taken. When only one parameter is passed, sum of 10, 2 and 3 is found. When first two parameter is passed, sum of 10, 20 and 3 is taken. And when all the three parameter are passed, so 10, 20, 30 are whatever value are assigned, it is assigned to A, B, C, and the sum, that is 60, is passed. It means what? Whenever I am passing a value, it will be assigned to A. So the default value will be overwritten. When default value is overwritten, in place of A, it will be taking 10, and the rest of the value 2 and 3 will be as it is. If two parameters are passed, A value 10 it is taken, B value it will be taken as 20, and third parameter by default it will be taking as C equal to 3. So the output becomes 33. And when all the three parameters are passed, third value also it will take to be 30, and we can get the result as 66, okay. Now can you try this? Of course the factorial program I have already described you. Try to write this program in your IDLE and check whether it is working or not. Of course the program is already given, but I want you to type it out. Once you will typing out, then I feel that you will get a lot of confidence with function. Are you done? Kavya?
No, sir. 1 minute.
Okay. So you got the output? You
Yes,
didn't
sir.
got any error kada?
No, sir.
Okay, very nice. Moria sir? Roy sir?
Sir, done.
Okay. Basically there is lots and lots and lots of thing under function. Because of the time constraint, I cannot cover all those things. Some other time, if you are having, I have supplied with the study material. Okay, up to yesterday you got all those things. Again you will get a few more study material on whatever I have discussed today. So if you can follow all those things, possibly all your doubts will be clear. And anyhow, I'll be available in the WhatsApp group. If you are having any problem, you can drop me a message, or my phone number is also available in the WhatsApp group, so you can call me and you can ask your doubts, sir. So thank you, sir. That I hope you have I could able to give my best, and you have learned. Now I think Eri sir will be taking over.
Thank you very much, sir. Rakesh sir, for completing 4 days of fundamentals of Python. This is series 1, and depending upon the interest level of the participants, we'll be conducting the next level, what we call as intermediate level, uh, after this session, once the participants are comfortable with whatever you have discussed. And thank you very much, sir, for your presence. Tomorrow again, we shall be meeting. And now I would request Eri to please take over from here.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Eri.
Okay.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Okay. I will need
Yes.
4 minutes. I need something
Yeah, okay.
to do. 4 minutes. It's okay?
It's okay, no problem.
Okay.
Sir, he will join. He'll join.
Hello, sir. Okay.
Yes, Eri. Yes, welcome.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Wait. Wait. Try it. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Harry, and I will try to introduce the Jupyter Notebook. So tomorrow we will dealing with NumPy and then Pandas and Matplotlib. So we have to make our work easier. We need IDE. One of the best IDE that I already use for right now is the Jupyter Notebook. So first thing is you need to install the Jupyter Notebook. There are two conditions that you can install it by using Conda, and you can use it pip instead. So if you use Conda, if you use Windows, you could install by using Conda, install Mincy, Conda for Jupyter Lab, or by using pip, you can use pip install Jupyter Lab. Okay, let me try. Let me try. Let me demonstrate it to you. The Chrome didn't respond. Sure. Sorry, my computer is not responding for a while. Okay. Now I will try to install it. So you maybe if you have to install, if you already install Pipe3, you just use Pipe3 install to JupyterLab. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. This is so yeah. Just like this one. So it will collect the JupyterLab files and also will install it to your machine. Okay. Okay, because it's take a little bit long, so I will demonstrate later. So this is how you use the Jupyter Notebook. Just type Jupyter Notebook and then it will run in your browser and show the Jupyter Notebook on your screen, and it will easier to us to understand which code that already running and which code is error, and also will show us the code that take it a little bit long to execute. So, okay. Basically, I already have the Jupyter. So you just type if you already installed. The Jupyter Notebook is just like this one. So if you already have two Python machine on your computer, you can select one of them. So for example, you want to you want to put your work in document, just like what I did, and then just click new. This is the machine that you already have. If you got two machine, for example Python 3 and Python 2, it will appear here. You just need to select this one, maybe Python 3, just like this one. So this is the IDE. Okay, the kernel is ready. I already used Python 3. So this is like this one. Print hello world. And when you want to run the code, you just use control and enter. So it will appear the output here. So far, Can you understand what I already present to you, or I need to go back to the installation first? Hello?
I'm Professor Roy calling Eri. Why we'll be using that Jupyter notebook? We are just
Okay.
what is the purpose of that using that Jupyter notebook?
Okay, the purpose is by using Jupyter Notebook is to help us to understand about what we have to achieve tomorrow. So we will try using the Jupyter Notebook. So you have already know the history what you could before. So for example, I print hello world and then I it's another line here, and I for example, A is 1 and B is 2 and C is A plus B, like this, and I only control, I execute it, and then uh, I print right here. So the history if you in your code is appear here, and it will help you understand what have you already implement, what have you already write down here. Maybe tomorrow we will work with 3 libraries: Pandas, Matplotlib, and also NumPy. So we will need to understand, and we will need to review the code that we already type here. So the Jupyter Notebook is to help us to understand the code, what the code that we already and the code that we need and the error. So it just help us. So it I think it's help us to to understand what the purpose and what we need to do.
Yeah, that only difference what I have understood from your presentation, that this one is basically that in single page, that in ideally whatever we are using, Rakesh sir was just teaching us, that
Yeah,
one, that two windows were there, and here in a single window you can see as well as you can see your program as well as the output. That is the difference what I understood.
yeah.
Is it correct?
It's just the IDE. So this is the integrated development environment. So it's just a text editor. It's just a text editor there. But in Jupyter Notebook, it will help us to easier to understand the code that we run, and then just help us to navigate which one error and which one that we need to execute, just like that. So I prefer using Jupyter Notebook because it will help us. It will help me. In my opinion, it helped me to understand when I code something in Python, and also when I dealing with data scientists and other current work. So I'm dealing with it by using Jupyter Notebook.
Okay, fine.
So just like that, the Jupyter Notebook is just a tool. It helps us to understand the code, and it to easier to us to make it easy to understand the code, and then to the output is in above the code itself, so it will help us to understand it. So the output just like this one, I already present to you. And then you just need to select the notebook machine. For example, what I did before, use Python 3, and then print the hello world. And when you already finish your job and you want to stop, you just need to use Ctrl+C. That's it. If you have anything that, if you have any question, feel free to ask.
Eric, for the short
assistance with the solution of Jupyter.
Yes.
For the participants, sir, actually, this is just like adding a little more sugar to the coffee. So nothing different from what we have learned with the ideally environment, what Rakesh sir was discussing. As correctly understood by Professor Nirmal sir, this is just another option that we have. So for the 4 days, we have a different version. What we should call is like the initial version. And this is the enriched version in which we do not have to type again and again or go for the results. Immediately we get the result on the same window. So Eri will be sharing the presentation on the WhatsApp chat. I request all the participants to install this. In case you face any problem in the installation, please post on the WhatsApp chat itself whatever problem you are facing. And before tomorrow's session, which will be around 2-hour session, the last session that will be conducted by Erin himself. Let us ensure that all of us have this Jupyter note. It is just, I think, 2 to 3 minutes of installation process. Nothing typical. It's very easy. So please try it out following the presentation that will be shared. In case of any doubts, please post the question in the WhatsApp group itself. We'll try to resolve this as soon as possible. Erin, is that okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So any more questions regarding this? Please try installing. In case of any issues, definitely some of you may face issues. So please post your issues with a screenshot or whatever. We'll try to get it resolved. It's a installation process. Nirmal sir, and Moria sir, and all the faculty members, participants, is it okay, sir?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sir. We'll be sharing Larry will be sharing the presentation, and along with the study material for today's session and the video, everything will be shared in some time. So thank you very much, all the participants. Tomorrow, please try to attend the session. It will be like plotting the graph, how to plot graphs in Python, and some graphical things will be discussed, important for the researchers, right? So it is going to be a good session by a non-Indian speaker. For the 4 days we had Rakesh Naik sir from India, and now we have Eri from Indonesia. So thank you all the participants from various countries. See you again tomorrow. Yes, Nirmal sir, you want to say something?
We should thank to Rakesh sir. Okay, we should thank to Rakesh sir, everybody. Rakesh sir is there.
So Rakesh sir is very helping, and yes,
Okay, thanks.
tomorrow, sir, again we'll be having an interactive session. Not tomorrow, day after tomorrow. On Saturday, we'll be having a short interactive session with everyone. All the participants, senior faculty members like you, and the speakers and everyone. Maybe for a short duration, but we'll have an interactive session, and we'll discuss more about future collaborations. So thank you all of you. We are signing off for today. Have a great day ahead.